Okay, let's jump right in and uncover the layers of a really unique place, Stillwater, downtown Minnesota.
Sounds great.
We've pulled together some fascinating materials. There's this comprehensive framework plan document. It looks the history, the present, the future vision.
Hmm.
And we also have info on local shops, events, stuff that really paints a picture of its life today.
Right. The current pulse.
Exactly. So our mission here is to distill the most important knowledge, the key insights from these sources, really bring Stillwater downtown to life for you, especially if you're maybe thinking about visiting or just want to get a handle on its unique character. Get ready for some surprising facts and highlights.
That's precisely it. We're going to try and synthesize all of this, the deep history, the detailed planning, the current energy into a clear understanding. We want to highlight the crucial points, those aha moments, and yeah, those surprising facts that really help you grasp what Stillwater downtown is all about.
Okay, so where do we start? At its core, what is Stillwater downtown? What's its fundamental identity?
Well, Stillwater has this incredibly strong identity,
Mm-hmm.
and it's deeply tied to its location. It's known as Minnesota's iconic river town.
Mm-hmm.
It's nestled right against the St. Croix River, and historically it carries this really weighty title, the Birthplace of Minnesota. Its setting is just stunning, shaped fundamentally by the river and those dramatic limestone bluffs towering over it.
Birthplace of Minnesota, that immediately tells you there's significant history there. How did it get that title? How did it start?
It goes way back. Established in 1843, the initial driving force was the incredible abundance of timber resources in the region, just vast forests.
Yeah.
And the St. Croix River was absolutely vital for transportation. It was the highway of its day, basically, moving logs downstream.
Like a log highway.
Exactly. And it's pretty mind-boggling when you think about the scale back then.
Yeah.
A staggering 3.5 billion logs passed through 9 sawmills.
Yeah.
9 sawmills located right there on the riverbank. The energy, the activity must have been tremendous.
Wow, 3.5 billion. That really gives you a sense of the scale, doesn't it?
It really does.
So its image today, is that really a direct link back to that timber history and the natural setting?
Exactly. The enduring image, the one people recognize, and importantly, the one that's actively preserved.
Mm-hmm.
It's rooted in those historic buildings that survived, the natural setting, the dedication to maintaining open spaces along the river and bluffs, and also the pedestrian accessibility of the core downtown, and of course the river itself.
Right.
In fact, preserving this historic rivertown image isn't just some nostalgic idea. The planning documents explicitly state it as a primary guiding goal for all future development.
Okay, so it's a core principle. And this focus on preservation, infrastructure, it started surprisingly early, didn't it?
It really did. Even early in the 20th century, there was foresight. Lowell Park, that big prominent green space on the riverfront now,
Yeah.
that was formally established way back in 1911.
1911.
Okay. And then something really significant happened in 1938 with the WPA. That's the Works Progress Administration, a key New Deal agency. They constructed this substantial double retaining wall system along the riverfront. Critical infrastructure. It was built to protect the downtown from erosion, from flooding. It really speaks to the long-term effort involved.
And that wall, along with Lowell Park, the historic Lift Bridge, the downtown area, they're recognized nationally, right?
Yes, that's right. They're all included on the National Register of Historic Places, which really underscores their historical importance and, the commitment to maintaining them.
So this place isn't just growing organically. It's been shaped, planned intentionally for generations, it sounds like. What do we learn about how they approach planning for Stillwater's future?
Well, the planning framework we looked at, it pulls together insights from numerous previous studies. They looked at transportation, parking, design, general planning, you name it. The key takeaway here is that these aren't just isolated reports sitting on a shelf. They inform a comprehensive, ongoing vision. And what's fascinating is that despite being done at different times, certain priorities consistently emerge.
Okay, what are those consistent priorities? What themes keep popping up in the planning efforts?
3 major themes come up again and again. First, it's about managing growth in a way that actually reinforces that small city historic character, rather than letting growth overwhelm it.
Okay.
This means deliberately working to preserve the historic rivertown image, encouraging a viable mix of services that work for both the local community and visitors, and importantly, protecting the character of the surrounding residential neighborhoods.
So balancing being a vibrant destination with being a place people actually live comfortably makes sense. What's the second recurring theme?
Connection. There's a really strong focus on physically connecting the different parts of the downtown area. Developing convenient pedestrian links is seen as crucial. Literally creating pathways that make it easy for people to move between, say, Lowell Park, the riverfront, the trails, Main Street, and those nearby residential areas.
That makes intuitive sense. You want it to feel like one cohesive place you can just explore on foot.
Exactly.
And the third theme.
It's tackling the significant challenge of balancing essential flood control infrastructure with aesthetics, how things look and feel, and ensuring those connections to the river remain open and appealing. Given its location right on the riverfront, dealing with potential flooding is just a constant reality. But the goal is to integrate these functional designs so they don't detract from the beauty or block access.
And did the community have a say in defining these goals, this vision?
Absolutely. The planning process is described as community-based. There were workshops, exercises like SWOT analysis, looking at strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats, all used to directly inform and define the downtown's vision moving forward. It's not just a plan created in isolation.
Okay. So how does all this planning, the history, the natural setting, how does it translate into the actual physical layout of Stillwater downtown?
Well, the St. Croix River and those bluffs are definitely the dominant forces shaping the layout. The core downtown area, right near the river, has that classic, compact, pedestrian-scale urban pattern. Feels very traditional. But the sources point out that as you move towards the fringe areas, sort of north of Mulberry Street and west of 2nd Street, the pattern shifts. It becomes more open, more oriented towards motor vehicles.
So you have that dense walkable heart. Are there particular streets or view corridors that stand out as being especially important?
Yes. Several streets are identified as key corridors. Myrtle Street, specifically west of 2nd Street, offers a really dramatic experience as you approach downtown from the bluff. Your view is intentionally shaped by trees, buildings, those natural limestone walls. It all directs your gaze right towards the river and the bluffs across the water.
That sounds like a very deliberate, kind of grand entrance.
It really is. Then, of course, there's Main Street itself, particularly the stretch between Commercial Avenue and Nelson Street. This is highlighted as the concentrated zone of commercial activity, known for that classic enclosed Main Street scale that feels very inviting.
Right.
Other important view and gateway corridors mentioned include Trunk Highway 95, East Olive, West Myrtle, Mulberry, East Chestnut, and then 2nd, 3rd, and 4th Streets.
And the planning aims to enhance these views, these connections.
Precisely. The objectives include preserving the natural character of the bluffs and the river as the backdrop, enhancing these key corridors with things like landscaping, framing specific views, and significantly improving the pedestrian connections along them.
Speaking of pedestrian connections, that seems like a major focus area. How are they planning to improve walkability specifically?
It's a big emphasis, yeah, aiming to create a truly integrated network. This involves improving links directly along the riverfront, expanding the riverfront open space where possible, also integrating the former Zephyr train line into usable trails, highlighting the connection to the Mulberry Ravine Trail, which comes down from the bluffs, and just reinforcing pedestrian links within the downtown through specific, what they call streetscape treatments on various streets.
Streetscape treatments, what exactly does that mean in practice? Like, what would you see?
It means deliberately designing the streets to be more pedestrian-friendly and to enhance the character of the area. So it can include things like widening sidewalks, maybe adding decorative paving materials, planting trees for shade and visual appeal, installing benches, improving lighting, adding clear signage. It's really about making the street itself a more pleasant public space, not just a conduit for cars.
Gotcha. Are certain streets singled out for these special treatments?
Yes. Streets like 3rd and 4th Streets, which run through what's called the Institutional District, where you find City Hall, the library, buildings like that they're noted. Commercial Avenue is another key one. It acts as a crucial link from Main Street down to the riverfront. And Chestnut Street, which connects towards the bridge, those are identified too.
Okay.
For Commercial Avenue, for example, proposals include pedestrian improvements like sidewalk bump outs, where the curb extends out at intersections.
It shortens the crossing distance.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Makes it safer. Plus trees, decorative paving, wayfinding elements, all to make that link down to the waterfront more inviting and clear for someone on foot.
And what about dedicated green spaces within the downtown core itself? Parks.
There are 3 primary park spaces mentioned. Lowell Park, which we talked about, that's the most prominent one right on the river. Then there's Teddy Bear Park, which is apparently a popular spot, and Pioneer Park, which is located up on the bluff. and offers great views.
Oh,
Recommendations for these spaces include things like adding more public docking opportunities along the river and creating multifunctional open areas within the parks that can host events or just be, places to relax.
so we have a sense of the layout, the history, the vision. But what about the practical challenges? I mean, any historic river town faces issues, right? Things like traffic, parking. Those immediately come to mind.
You've hit on some of the most significant challenges identified in the planning documents, absolutely. Historically, through traffic congestion, particularly related to the old lift bridge, has been a major pain point.
I bet.
The sources note that the new Trunk Highway 36 bridge project, which opened relatively recently, is specifically anticipated to help alleviate a lot of that downtown through traffic, divert it away from the core. The overall transportation goal is an integrated system: roads, bikeways, transit options, pedestrian paths, all designed to minimize the impact of that necessary through traffic, especially on the residential areas nearby.
Makes sense. Parking, though. Parking in any popular historic downtown can be tricky. What's the situation and the challenge in Stillwater?
Yeah, it's always a hot topic. The sources give us a breakdown of the current parking supply: 616 on-street spaces, 1,062 public off-street spaces, and 11,177 private off-street spaces.
Okay, that's a fair number of spots.
It is, but here's a key insight highlighted in the plan. A significant chunk of the public parking is located directly along the riverfront in these large surface lots.
Right next to the water.
Exactly. And this creates what's described as both a physical and a psychological barrier. That wide expanse of asphalt, often without many trees, essentially separates the vibrant main street from the very river that defines the town.
Huh. I hadn't thought of it that way.
Yeah, so what seems practical for just parking cars actually inhibits the connection to the town's most important natural asset. It kind of walls it off visually.
Ah, that's a really interesting consequence. So are they looking at alternatives?
Yes, exploring alternative parking locations is a big part of the plan. Specifically, looking at structured parking solutions, parking garages. Several potential sites for these structures were identified, with the location at 2nd Street and Commercial Avenue noted as being particularly preferred.
And the idea is to get cars off the riverfront.
That's the core idea, yeah. Structured parking can consolidate a lot of parking vertically, which could free up those valuable riverfront surface lots for potential redevelopment or maybe more public open space, reconnecting Main Street to the river. And the steep terrain of the bluffs is actually seen as an opportunity here. Structures could potentially be set into the hillside to help minimize their visual impact from the street level.
Interesting way to use the topography. And going back to the river itself, you mentioned flood control as a constant consideration. What are the specifics of that flood control project along Lowell Park?
Right, there's a significant project called Stage 3 Flood Control, either underway or planned along Lowell Park. Its main purpose is pretty straightforward: protect the downtown core from flooding. Specifically, providing protection against what's called a 50-year flood event.
Okay. How do they do that? A big wall.
Well, it involves constructing a low flood wall, primarily along the path of the former railroad right-of-way that runs through the park. But the design is specifically intended to be seamlessly integrated into Lowell Park itself, not just be some big, imposing concrete barrier.
How do they integrate it seamlessly? That sounds tricky.
It is. The design varies a bit depending on the specific section of the park, but the goal is to minimize the exposed height of the wall. South of Mulberry Street, for instance, the aim is for the wall to be only around 2 feet high, designed so it can function as a seating wall within the park landscape.
Oh, okay, like dual purpose.
Exactly. Yeah. Features like the regional trail are being integrated right alongside or even on top of the wall structure in places. There are plans to potentially incorporate an amphitheater area near Commercial Avenue, blending the functional wall with public space. And importantly, there's a plan to raise Mulberry Street slightly where it meets the park. That helps reduce the required height of the flood wall in that section, and it serves the traffic goal of slowing vehicles entering the park area.
Clever.
Yeah, it's a complex project attempting to marry critical infrastructure needs with creating usable, attractive public space.
It certainly sounds like a significant undertaking. Let's shift gears a bit, maybe talk about the economic life of Stillwater downtown. What's the pulse there?
The economy is highlighted as being one of the oldest and notably more vibrant in the state, actually exceeding typical suburban economic norms, which is interesting. Yeah. And tourism is absolutely central to this. It's a key industry, largely driven by those preserved historical sites from the logging era we talked about.
Mm.
So the downtown is just filled with businesses specifically catering to visitors.
Mm.
Historic hotels, cozy bed and breakfasts, museums, riverboat excursions on the St. Croix, a really wide array of specialty shops, and numerous restaurants and cafes.
And events seem to play a big role, too, in drawing people in.
A huge role, yes.
Yeah.
Downtown hosts many special events throughout the year that consistently draw thousands of visitors. Classic examples like Lumberjack Days, Rivertown Art Festival, the Music on the Waterfront series.
Right.
But the sources also mention specific examples that show the ongoing vitality. Things like a food truck extravaganza planned for 2025, an Elvis tribute show, creative workshops like a stacked bracelet class, line dancing events, and the regular farmers market. It's clear there's always something happening to attract people.
You mentioned specialty shops. What's the general shopping experience like there?
It's quite unique, actually. The documents mention over 50 unique, independent, owner-operated stores, primarily located right on Main Street and the adjacent side streets. And the variety is pretty extensive. You can find clothing boutiques, art galleries, culinary shops, gift stores, home decor, cafes, nightlife spots, inns. But one area where Stillwater really stands out, according to the sources, is antiquing.
Oh, tell me more about that. Stillwater as an antiquing destination.
Yeah, it has a serious national reputation here. It's been rated one of the top 10 best antiquing towns in the U.S. by Photo's Travel.
Wow.
And called a best shopping hood by Minneapolis-St. Paul magazine. The sources emphatically state it has more antique shops than any other destination in the entire 5-state area of the upper Midwest.
More than anywhere else in the region.
That's what they claim. And here's a surprising fact. It's home to the largest antique and collectible mall in the upper Midwest, called Midtown Antiques. That one building alone features over 80 dealers. It's spread across 3 floors, 10,000 square feet, and it's famous for its prominent smokestack. That kind of scale is remarkable for a town this size.
That is impressive. A major hub for antiquing, clearly. Can you give us a taste of some other unique shops mentioned, just to illustrate the variety beyond antiques?
Absolutely. The sources call out places like the Koth-Wohlfahrt Christmas store, which is actually the first U.S. location for this well-known German Christmas brand. Kind of cool. There's black letter books for used and rare books. Barbara Ann's Fudge Shop, apparently famous statewide for their pecan turtles.
Okay, noted.
Candyland, an old-fashioned candy store that's been around since 1932, famous for its Chicago mixed popcorn. A family-owned bait and tackle shop called Walleye Willie's, inspired by their son, which shows the local roots. Toxi-Free offers biodegradable products. Smith & Trade Mercantile features local artisans and hosts workshops. There's also the River Market Community Co-op for local food. This list really highlights that independent, varied nature of the retail scene.
So, a lot of positives driving that vibrant economy, but the planning documents also acknowledge challenges on the economic front, right? It's not all smooth sailing.
No, definitely not. They are clear-eyed about the difficulties. Identified challenges include that perceived lack of convenient parking we discussed earlier, traffic congestion, also a shift in retail offerings away from basic convenience goods, meaning limited options for local residents for just everyday needs.
Right, more tourist-focused, maybe.
Potentially, yeah. Limited transit options are also noted, as are limited opportunities for new, large-scale development or redevelopment within that existing historic fabric. It's tight. And challenges with direct access from major highways compared to, say, more modern suburban locations.
Okay. Given those challenges, what does the analysis suggest about future development potential in the downtown area? Is there room for growth?
The sources estimate potential for new housing, suggesting Stillwater downtown could support up to 250 new multifamily housing units, that's both owned condos and rental apartments, over the next 10 years or so. This could include some age-restricted housing as well. While the market for homes for sale has apparently slowed, they note there is immediate demand for rental units.
And commercially, retail, office.
On the commercial side, they estimate potential for approximately 20,000 square feet of new retail space over the next decade. Anticipating this would primarily be restaurants and specialty retail, like the kinds of shops we discussed. They also see potential for about 10,000 square feet of new office space, mostly geared toward small professional firms. However, and this is a crucial point made, improved access. So addressing those traffic and parking issues will be absolutely essential to actually realizing that commercial growth potential. And they note that supporting things like neighborhood retail, stuff for local residents, would require a significant increase in local housing units first. They estimate over 2,000 more units would be needed to really sustain that type of retail shift.
Right, you need the local population base.
Exactly.
So plans are in place, visions defined. But how does all of this move from concept to reality? What's involved in actually implementing these plans and maintaining the downtown's vitality day to day?
Well, the documents stress that frameworks like this aren't static. They don't just sit there.
Right.
Putting them into action requires continuous proactive leadership and strong collaboration between city officials, county and regional authorities, the local business community, particularly the Chamber of Commerce is mentioned, and potential developers. It takes everyone working together.
What do those implementation steps look like on the ground, practically speaking?
It involves practical steps like coordinating the specific projects identified in the plan, getting them actually integrated into capital improvement plans with timelines, and importantly, funding sources identified. It means coordinating staging and funding with larger partners could be federal entities like the Army Corps of Engineers for flood control or the State Department of Transportation, MNDOT, for road and bridge projects. And crucially, it involves defining long-term maintenance strategies for all the new infrastructure and public spaces created. You have to plan for upkeep. Right. The framework plan itself often lays out this approach in phases looking at short-term actions, midterm goals, and long-term objectives. And beyond the physical projects, maintaining locality relies heavily on community organization and promotion. The downtown Stillwater Chamber of Commerce plays a significant role here through their own vision plan. They advocate for the downtown's needs, coordinate promotional campaigns and events, and foster public-private partnerships for smaller projects like temporary art installations, landscaping, streetscape enhancements, things like that.
And for developers who might be interested in building or investing in Stillwater downtown, is there guidance available for them?
Yes, the planning documents indicate that developers are actively encouraged to work closely with city staff, preferably early in their process, and to refer to the guidelines within the framework plan and any previous relevant studies. This collaborative approach helps ensure that new projects align with the community's overall goals and expectations for how the downtown should look, feel, and function.
Okay. Wow, we've covered a lot of ground today.
Yeah.
Really gotten a sense of Stillwater downtown. We've explored its deep roots, Minnesota's birthplace, Timber Town, seen how its history and that river setting shape its enduring identity. We delved into the pretty comprehensive planning efforts aimed at preserving character while managing growth, enhancing connections.
Balancing it.
Yeah. Navigated the challenges, traffic, parking, flood control, and painted a picture of its vibrant economy driven by tourism, those unique shops, special events.
Exactly. So you hopefully now have a more detailed understanding of the layers involved, the history, the community effort, the economic activity that make this place distinct. This kind of information is hopefully a great shortcut to grasping the dynamics at play, whether you're maybe considering a visit or just curious about how a place like this balances its past with its future aspirations.
Absolutely. We've talked a lot about Stillwater's constant effort to preserve its historic river town identity while also preparing for future growth. And considering how vital tourism is and how the plan highlights limited transit options and access from major highways as real challenges, it makes you wonder, what happens to a historic downtown's vibrancy if it becomes increasingly difficult for visitors or even residents to get there easily in the future?
That's a really interesting question to ponder, yeah. How dependent is that character on easy accessibility, and what happens if that changes?